This video is to help you find a way to maintain your positive intention for your energy, even through times when life feels like it's an endurance race or when it feels relentless. These are things that I've kind of come to in my understanding that have definitely helped me in overcoming some of those obstacles that we face, even when we overcome the major obstacles. So let's rewind just a short moment to talk about where I'm coming from, my background. So I was heavily addicted to meth for a good 5 years. I had experimented with drugs in my lifetime when I went to college and post-college, and eventually found myself really ensnared in one of the more dangerous drugs. Now, they're all have their levels of danger, and they're it's not to compare anybody's. We all have our own things that we latch on to, right? And so whatever we become addicted to, that is our burden. But it was a burden, and it was something that I lost myself in through desiring escapism, through wanting to feel better about myself, and you know, I call it synthetic confidence because that's what I was gaining from it. And so that had me in a deep darkness for a good 5+ years. From the start of it, which was around 2016, the start of it's being used very frequently, if not daily. And it lasted all the way through the pandemic and into 2001, when I finally hit my breaking point, you know, rock bottom, the quintessential rock bottom, and decided that this was no longer how I can live. This is no longer what I can put up with. This is no longer what is right for myself. Between the drug that I was ingesting, between how unhealthy I had become, through the weight that I had gained. Yes, you can gain weight when you're addicted to meth, when your body is malnourished and you then binge eat, and it's a cyclical thing where your body's used to the drug. Well, you start putting on the weight, and the drug keeps it away from your sight because it still is giving you this illusion of confidence and positivity, and oh, I must look great, right? And oh, this must not be hurting me as much as I think, and all of that stuff. It's all fake. It's all an illusion. And so all of that stuff started mounting. I was missing connection with loved ones and family. And I was just surrounding myself with people that were unsavory is the word I was going for, but just not good for me, okay? They have their own things they're dealing with. I don't judge anybody for their addictions or their habits or anything like that. So in 2021, I decided to sell my apartment in the Bronx and move out back home to my parents' place in PA, and to really just go cold turkey with all substances. It took me a little bit longer to quit smoking cigarettes, but fast forward to today, I am much healthier. I have lost over 60 pounds to get back to a weight that feels more comfortable for this vehicle that my soul is driving. And I am doing things that I never thought I'd have time for, or never thought were important enough to give the attention to or the time to. And now I'm doing those things, and those things have become my life. And it's a rediscovering of my passions, my desires, what makes me tick, what was the initial impetus for all of my study and in art, and all my desires that had gone long dormant. And so now I feel like I'm at a place where all of that stuff is being reborn again. So as I contemplated all that, and I started to think about the challenges that I'm facing now, even with all that behind me, right? Because life doesn't necessarily change like that into bright shining rainbows and unicorns. It's still a grind. And when you have a lot of that baggage energy to shed, it doesn't go away very easily, even when you are dedicated to the new path. And so I started thinking, what tools have I learned that I can rely on now to get me through this, what I think and I call an in-between phase, right? This spiritual phase that is not quite then, not quite your future, this training ground sort of, to bridge the gap from who you were to who you're going to be. And there's a lot of trials that come up with that, right? A lot of different emotions, a lot of feeling stuck, a lot of questions and wondering why. And so these are 10 things that I think will help in getting you through that gap, bridging that gap, or even just things that you want to revisit when you're finding yourself overburdened and overwhelmed by the scope of your situation. Okay, so a good place to start, especially if you're in the beginning of shedding some of these struggles that you might be facing, is to not ask yourself what will make you happy, but ask yourself what is best for my body. Because especially when we're stuck in illusion and stuck in habits, what makes us happy might be a false sense of happiness. For me, being addicted to a drug, what made me happy at the time was doing that drug. What made me unhappy was trying to quit. So what makes me happy is not the right question to ask. What's good for my body is a way to, in some ways, overcome the mind into what the soul wants, because the soul needs the body. And the body needs to be up to speed and on par with some general levels of health and self-care that allow it to drive you into positive things. So taking care of your health, what does your body feel like? What is your body telling you, right? If you're starting to have trouble running or going upstairs, or you just get winded with normal daily activities and you're a smoker, well, what does your body need? Probably not to have smoke ingested and inhaled. So I think asking yourself what my body needs versus what would make me happy will really help to make it simple for your mind to comprehend what the next step should be. Okay, so number 2 is to do things that support the foundation of your confidence. This is going to be very helpful when battling the ego, right? The ego can sometimes be looked at the thing that makes us feel better than others or makes us feel elevated or whatever. But in a lot of ways, in most internal ways, the ego actually cuts us down, right? This is mind chatter, negative self-talk, those types of things are the ego trying to badger us into a better situation or being better in some way. It's keeping us less than consistently. And so what can we do? We can build up our confidence through the things and choices that we make and the things that we partake in. Read some books, right? Gather knowledge and information on subjects that you enjoy and things that you don't necessarily know much about. That can build a foundation for your mind to then understand that you've gotten something out of the activity that you're putting your time into. And that can really begin to feed itself in a very positive cycle. Getting out into nature, right? Doing good things for your body, as we sort of mentioned in the first one. That's going to help you, and if you can find ways to be creative to do it, right? Just do things that make you feel like you're positively contributing to your daily routine, right? This definitely is not going on social media constantly and scrolling constantly on our phones, or, only socializing through our phones, or only, isolating ourselves and watching TV or whatever. I mean, a lot of that has to do with technology. So let's just say if you can avoid some technology a lot of the time, that can help. But it's really about what things can you partake in that will make you feel this true sense of confidence. Not a confidence that is gained from anyone else's opinion or any likes that you get on Facebook or anything like that. This is about doing things that at the end of the day, you can look back on and go, wow, I learned something. Or I did that thing. I overcome that physical obstacle. I went on a hike longer than I've ever gone on before, right? If we could start to do those things more consistently, then our subconscious and our psyche has a lot of other things to pull for when it's trying to derive confidence during moments of weakness. So number 3 is try to always pivot from a mindset that's questioning to a mindset that marvels. And what I mean by that is if you're starting to get lost in questions of when is this thing coming, where am I going, what's the delay in this, or what is this person thinking and all that, try to change your mindset to marvel and with a little bit of wonder at all the things that have sort of lined up for you in the past. If that's a struggle to do, then I would really advise that you take note of this one, because I think that for most people, again, there are exceptions out there, people that are struggling in a really hard way, so I'm not trying to minimize that, but for most of us, if we're trying to look at things that we marvel at and we're not able to see that, it's because we've given so much attention to the negative that those positive things we've just forgotten almost as instantly as they've come, because they're not a threat to us. And so we always tend to remember the negative and forget the positive. So marvel at when things in the timing of your life just seemed perfect, right? For me, it was that I was able to get out of my situation and to find a healthier way of living just in time to reconnect with my family. And that was super important because my father unfortunately has passed in the last few months from cancer, and I was able to enjoy the last few years of doing things, right? And going places. And we went to Seattle to see a Seahawks Jets game, and we went to, the US Open, and we went on hikes, and we got to do a lot more than if I were to have been stuck where I was and had taken that opportunity to leave that situation a little too late. And so I'm marveling at the timing of that. The other thing I marvel at is the way I became a freelancer. You can check that video out. I'll link it right here. But that whole story is about marveling at the timing of things and how things can work out for you. So don't forget that. So number 4 is a little bit of an addendum to that last one, because I think it's worth separating. And it's to allow yourself to feel negative emotions, right? In the previous one, we talked about getting too wrapped up in questionings and uncertainties and wondering what's happening and all this stuff. There's some answers that we can't get, right? And that's why pivoting is so important. But with negative emotions, it doesn't necessarily serve you to pivot to something happy in that moment, because those negative emotions are serving a purpose. The key here is to never make action from these panic-inducing emotions, because although they're good to feel and it's genuine and authentic to feel those, making any action from that place of thinking is only going to lead you down the wrong path. You're only going to find yourself hitting pitfalls and stumbling over your feet if you make actions based on your anger, if your frustration leads you to acting too rashly, if your dissatisfaction with your situation makes you spontaneously act in a way that isn't well thought out, right? This is how we can then shoot ourselves in the foot. So we want to feel those emotions, but we don't want to make any panic-induced actions out of them. Okay, so number 5 is a little similar to where we were going at the end there at that last one, but it's to never allow negative self-talk to be followed by compensating actions. Always follow negative self-talk with self-care. So what does that mean? That means when we're beating ourselves up, when we're not feeling attractive enough, when we're criticizing ourselves about what we've eaten. Well, instead of working out to the point of exhaustion or injuring ourselves, or instead of being depressed and going to our room to sleep it off, go to a movie, right? Or go out into nature, right? Do something that is beneficial to you, that thanks you, right? Because if we are negatively self-talking to ourselves, it's quite likely that we're going to follow that up with something that we think is going to fix that thing that we're beating ourselves up about, or is going to completely, change the course of where that mindset came from. And usually that's not the case. Usually we're grasping at straws or doing things too impulsively, right? It's again that panic response that we talked about in number 4. Well, here, the next step to that is to just do something that makes you feel good. Because You don't want to reward that negative self-talk with actions that allows your ego to say, oh, I can make my body and this psyche feel a certain sort of way, and then it will go and do something, and it will satisfy that urge. It will scratch my ego itch, right? Well, it's not going to help you. So if you can do something for yourself, that level of peace, that level of calm, even the distraction, as I mentioned, from going to nature or going to see a movie, is actually going to be the thing that benefits you. And it's actually going to be the thing that changes the tide, potentially, of that negative self-talk in the future. Number 6 is to always give yourself credit for the successes, right? Even if they're minor, incremental steps in a positive direction. These are things that we want to celebrate. So we always want to remember those things. If you've made any improvements in your life, or you've dug yourself out of a hole that you were in some sort of way, in whatever way, then never forget that, and never forget to remind yourself of how far you've come, right? That's not getting lost in the past. That's showing us through the proof of the situation and the proof of the events that have already occurred, what you're capable of and what you can then do moving forward. It's the perfect remedy to some of those questions that might make you feel fearful about not knowing where you're going, or if you have the strength to do it. Well, look at what you've done. And look at how maybe that had seemed impossible prior to. And that will help in building up the energy that you need to keep forging on. We touched on a little of this one in number 1, but number 7 is don't let professional and or financial success or lack thereof give you or take away from your worth. Because those are so materialistic, right? Those are so subjective too. We all find different levels of success at different periods of time. We all find different levels of financial income and gain beneficial to us, that helps sustain us in different ways, right? And so if we're trying to put a data value like monetary gain or anything like that, how many rungs of the professional ladder have we climbed? We're really giving up the control of our worth. We're really putting that in something else's hand, an external thing, physical or situational, that is now driving our car of worth. And that is something that we don't want to do. We don't want those to be benchmarks. Yes, we all have to survive and make a living, and we all want to find success in the thing that we're doing professionally. But it also is a dangerous road to go down if at first you don't find success in the thing that you're loving to do and the thing that you're setting out to do, right? It can demoralize us, and it can take us off track just when we're making the proper foundations and building the roots to then see that bamboo stalk grow in 5 years, right? We don't want to curtail that before it even has a chance to see the light of day. So if we're too judgmental about that, or we're taking stock too soon of that, or at all, then we are missing the point of continuous growth and continuously working towards something through our love, not through our, again, bottom line, or what our, income has been that quarter, or whatever it is. It's the wrong way to look at it. So don't let financial or professional success dictate your worth. So number 8 is just make sure that you're giving your time and energy to the people that matter most to you. And subsequently, make sure that those people are giving you the same time and energy, and that you are important to them as well, right? We need it to be a balanced situation, but we don't want to be giving our attention and our time and our energy to people that are destroying us, right? And again, that's something we have to own. When I went through my addiction, it wasn't that other people were destroying me. I was allowing their situation and their presence to keep mine stuck. And so I wasn't delineating my time correctly to the right people. A big part of this one is going to be to truly listen, and to, again, find people that will truly listen to you, right? Listening is going to be the best way to have a proper and productive conversation, one that feels meaningful, one that allows for growth to be exchanged, information to be exchanged, knowledge to be exchanged. If we're not listening and we're thinking of the next thing to say, then we're not properly giving our energy to that person. Just make sure that the people that you love, that sometimes can be taken for granted, are never taken for granted. The people that are easy to be with, that are always listening and that are giving their time to you in a very generous way, do it back to them, right? This is important because very easily we can get wrapped up in the wrong people. So number 9 is definitely have fun with, definitely contemplate, but don't get lost in the unknown. What do I mean by this? What I mean is certain things, questions, things about life, things about the universe, those unknown aspects of who we are. Sometimes it's spiritual questions, right? Sometimes it's highly religious themes or whatever it may be. But those things that we can't ever truly know, that we can only believe in, doesn't mean we can't believe in them. But if we get lost and attached to them, and it's not just this fun exercise of brainstorming what things could be, like almost like a kid having fun with your inner child and having wonder about life. If it becomes something where you're tied to one of the answers, you're too stuck in what you think that is because you're deriving too much value from it, too much comfort from it, then you're missing the point of some of what that unknown is about. And that's mostly about suspending belief in a lot of ways, not having those answers. When we get too wrapped up in this is what things mean, and now I have to be very vigilant about blocking out everything else that doesn't say that, and only staying in my lane and only dealing with the people that believe that same thing that I do. How limiting does that sound to you? How much stress does that sound to you? To me, it seems like a lot. So for me, the questions of where the universe started, what our spirit is all about, what happens when we die, I love thinking about those things. I couldn't never not think about those things. But I don't pigeonhole myself or stick myself with a specific answer as if, one, I know what that answer is, and two, because I don't want to alienate any other opinions or any other point of view, right? This is something that will help you in detaching from what you think you need to survive, which is the answer to those questions. But if we're too wrapped up in it, then there's a seriousness that kind of keeps us low vibration. If we're able to shed this need for one explanation, then it's not about what's the correct answer, which is more of the logical mind trying to wrap its brain around things and trying to control things, to what feels right for you. And in that way, it's the emotional response, right? It's the emotional feeling behind it. And if we go from that place, then we can allow people to think different things, to believe different things, and it doesn't affect us. Okay, and number 10 is quite easy, but also goes overlooked. And it's just have things to look forward to. Always have things to look forward to, right? Big and small, right? Going to a art fair on a Saturday to break up the day and do something different, right? To go on some vacations or road trips, right? To have a concert next month to go through. This is something I've learned from my parents growing up that I find to be invaluable, and I'm learning right now as I'm stuck in that in-between phase I talked about, is very important, is to have fun things to look forward to. So try to plan things in advance, right? Try to organize things if you can in advance. And if not, just make sure you don't get stuck in a routine where you're not allowing your soul some opportunity to have fun, to be relaxed, right? It can't all just be about work. We can't all be serious all the time. We need to have things to look forward to. So make the most out of today or tomorrow by making sure you have those things coming down the pike that you can look and say, okay, this is going to give me some relief. It's right around the corner. And then make sure you keep making those for yourself. And then I have a bonus one here because I think some people this may apply to and it may not, and some may not see the way in which they can use this one, but create something, right? You don't have to be an artist to create something. A very important part of our soul in interacting on this earth is when we can put our hands into something. The other day I went to the beach, and instead of sitting there with my book, which again is on this list, right? Read and gather information. I decided, no, I'm going to change it up this time. I'm going to bring a big bucket and a shovel, and I'm going to try a sand sculpture out. And I experimented with doing that, and it gave my inner child a lot of joy. And it just was something creative that I could do that I wasn't a master at, that I wasn't an expert at, that was fun and allowed me to see something that I created. We don't have to be perfect at something to take part of it. It's not about being perfect at it. It's about the act of doing it. So just do it and you'll see the benefits of it. I guarantee you. So hopefully you found some value in this list and have learned a little bit more about me. There's going to be more content like this on this site, especially when I'm going on the road and traveling. But I think it's important to remember that even when we're in a moment in our life where we're needing to endure, maybe we're at that in-between phase, maybe we're just at a plateau where things aren't changing as fast as we'd like, or we're not seeing the future come as soon as we would like it to. We have to find ways of maintaining these positive things that we've set out to do for ourselves, even when we're not seeing the necessary result yet. So these things can help remind you and help you refocus away from the frustration of it all and back to a more healthy outlook for your day to day. So thanks for joining me, and see you again next time. Bye.